Hello and welcome back everybody. Today we're going to be talking about some more Fallout New Vegas weapons, and this time we're going to be going over 5 strong early game weapons that you can get that are not unique weapons. So these are weapons that you can pick up right at the beginning of the game. I made sure none of these actually go to New Vegas. Most of them you can get very early on within the first hour or two of playing the game. You can actually get them within the first 30 minutes if you really just want to run for it. We did talk about 5 unique weapons you can get early on, so if you would like to see that video, be sure to click on that after this video. So all 5 of these weapons are not unique weapons. They are fairly easy to get. However, some of them do require some extra steps, usually stealing them. First up, we have the 9mm submachine gun, which is available in Goodsprings. This is available in Doc Mitchell's house, and you need 25 repair to get this. 25 repair is not particularly hard to get because there is actually a repair magazine in the Prospector Saloon, so long as you have 15 repair and that magazine. The 9mm submachine gun is a pretty good weapon early on, as it lets you have pretty high damage and pretty good DPS. 9mm is fairly easy to find early on as well. You could even just wait in Goodsprings a couple of days for Chet to refill his stock so that you could keep buying a bunch of 9mm if you would like. That is one particular option. It's also not too difficult to find weapon repair kits to repair this weapon and to repair kind of all these weapons early on, because most of them don't come out with the most health. But this can be really useful, especially if you want to run north and fight Cazadors. This weapon is pretty strong. 9mm has some pretty decent ammo types to it as well. You can get the plus P rounds, or you can get hollow point rounds, or you can make your own jacketed hollow point rounds, so long as you have the hand loader perk, which you can get at level 6, and it works really well against soft body enemies, maybe not so much against armored enemies, but most of the time you're not fighting heavily armored enemies at the very start of New Vegas. For the second weapon that we can get early on in New Vegas, this is a sawed-off double-barreled shotgun. You can get this one up at Sloan. It's always in one of the lockers here, so you can just open up this, grab that, and grab some shotgun shells. Now, 12-gauge shotgun shells are a little bit difficult for you to find early on in New Vegas, so you might have to talk to some traveling merchants. You might have to run down to the 188 trading post, which we're going to talk about here in a second. You could also potentially make some 12-gauge shotgun shells, and assuming you have the Gunrunner Arsenal DLC for Fallout New Vegas, which you probably will, the random traveling merchants have a good chance of carrying any sort of 12-gauge round. That might not be the best because you might get something like 12-gauge pulse slugs, which are only really useful against robots, or 12-gauge beanbags, which are very fun, but not very strong against regular enemies. But on the other hand, you might get something really cool, like you might get flechettes, or you might get Dragon's Breath, or you might just get some of the, I think it's triple-aught buck, or quadruple-aught buck, whatever the heck it's considered in New Vegas for the 12-gauge. Those ones are all pretty good. The 12-gauge shotgun does have very short range for a shotgun, as you kind of expect it to, but it does do pretty high damage per shot, even though you do have to fire out both barrels. So it can be really strong early on, especially if you need an emergency weapon just to have high burst damage if things are getting close, or if you just want to use this indoors. Our third early game weapon is the Cowboy repeater. You can pick this one up in Prim. There's actually 2 in Prim, I believe. Both of them in the sheriff's office, so you can go in there, and one of them is right underneath the bed. You can grab this. It is in very low health though, so you will need weapon repair kits to fix this, or you will need to buy more Cowboy repeaters from other traders, which sometimes the early traders can have this. Not all the time though. It is a pretty decent weapon. Its sights are a little bit iffy because they're kind of weird. I don't really like the aperture sign on there, and I don't really like that the front post sticks up as high as it does, but either way, it's still a fairly good gun. 357 is really easy to find early on, same with 38 Special. You can buy these usually in bulk. You can, again, go to Goodsprings and buy just a bunch of them from Chet. You can make your own rounds too, especially if you have the handloader perk. You can get jacketed flat points, which are really strong because they give you some armor breaking and they just buff up the damage of the weapon. And you can potentially find some early game parts for the Cowboy repeater, although it is fairly rare. For some reason, the Cowboy repeater parts are usually kind of difficult to get in New Vegas, but if you do get them, you can have things like the longer tube to get you from 7 rounds to 11. You can get the better receiver for a higher rate of fire, and you can also get the walnut stock, I believe, so that you have a lighter magazine, or maybe it's maple stock. I think it might be a maple stock that gives you a lighter overall rifle. It's very useful early on, especially if you plan on doing old world blues early on, because there's a lot of 357 ammo there, so you can just stock up on that and take a Cowboy repeater. Also, just in the early game of New Vegas, be sure to be looking out for weapon repair kits, and also all the materials to make weapon repair kits. It doesn't take that much repair to actually make weapon repair kits, or maybe it's science, I don't remember, it's one of the two. And you can get them pretty early on, which will make all these weapons a lot more viable because you won't have to worry about them breaking, and you'll just get more damage out of them. Our fourth weapon that you can get early on is is the service rifle. You can get this at the 188 trading post so long as you talk to Ranger Jackson and do his mission. He'll actually give you a decent amount of gear where he gives you a service rifle, some armor piercing rounds for the service rifle, some caravan lunches, which are very useful on the survival difficulty, and a couple of weapon repair kits, which is great to go along with any of the weapons we've talked about. All you have to do for this is just kill a bunch of ants. It's not very difficult. You should be able to do this with any build on any difficulty. I just used my sawed-off double barrel with some dragon's breath that I actually bought from one of the merchants just hanging out outside, so it killed all the bugs extremely fast. The service rifle is a pretty good early game rifle. It takes the 5.56 round. 5.56 is extremely versatile with all the different bullets you can have. You can have regular 5.56, you can have 2.23, you can have the surplus rounds, you can have the match rounds, you can have the armor piercing or the hollow point rounds. There's just a lot of different bullets that you can throw into this that kind of lets it do any sort of job. It's great for hip firing, and its sights are decent enough for you to be using at longer ranges. It's also very easy to stock up on a lot of 5.56 rounds before even getting this weapon, since you'll get weapons like the varmint rifle in Good Springs. So it's not too difficult to actually find rounds for it. It's also not difficult to buy them, and this should serve you well running through the south part of New Vegas. And then our fifth and final weapon is the lever action shotgun, which you can pick up at Boulder City. There's a couple places where you can pick up lever action shotguns. It's just this one's one that I always remember, and it's very easy to pick up. Just go into the bar, go to the back room of the bar, open the door, close the door behind you, and then just steal it off of there. It takes the 20 gauge shotgun shell, which the 20 gauge is extremely easy to find. It's very common to just buy from merchants as well, so it's really easy to get a bunch of them. You can also just repair this with weapon repair kits, and it does pretty good damage per second. It's probably the best 20 gauge shotgun in the game, at least overall for just about everything. It also pairs really well with the Cowboy perk, which you can get early on because it is a lever action gun. Same goes with the Cowboy repeater, which we talked about. You can put slugs into this or the various buckshots into it, and I always find this weapon to be super fun to use and super effective early on into the game. Kind of falls off a little bit later. I mean, most of these weapons kind of do, but there we have 5 early game weapons in New Vegas. That should make your New Vegas travels a little bit easier. I didn't want to include things from the DLC packs because that seems like it would be a little bit easy, and they would also be unique weapons. If you do have the DLC packs early on, getting all these weapons is much easier. Having something like the mercenary grenade launcher, the weathered 10mm, the broad machete, or the caravan shotgun, and same goes with plenty of the unique weapons. If you'd like to see another 5 unique early game weapons in Fallout New Vegas, be sure to tell me. I'd like to do another one of them. I think that could be fun because there is quite a few unique weapons you can actually get early on into New Vegas. Tell me your thoughts on the weapons of New Vegas and 5 early game weapons that you would recommend to new players too down in the comments below. I'd love to hear them. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.